We'll get started. Climate Ready YYC is a grant that is funded by the City of Calgary and is administered by the Federation of Calgary Communities. Thank you very much for joining in the information sharing session today. Just to walk through my presentation, after the land acknowledgement, I will be talking a little bit about the Federation of Calgary Communities. I'm pretty sure all of you are aware of our organization. However, Climate Ready YYC is a very unique grant because it is open to all, not just our members. Hence, I will be sharing a little bit about our organization. Then I will move on to introduction of Climate Ready YYC. Sorry, it says small grants, but this is for large grants. And I will be introducing a little bit about climate change adaptation and mitigation projects that would fit in the scope of this grant and run through the grant application process as well. Even if I've allocated question and answers at last. However, if you have any questions when I'm presenting, please feel free to raise your hand and Danielle will help me monitor the chat as well. So if there are any questions in the chat, please let me know, Danielle, and I will be answering as we go. Okay, moving on. The Federation of Calgary Communities acknowledges Mohkinstsis and the traditional Treaty 7 territory and oral practices of the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprised of the Siksika, the Kainai, and the Piikani First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda, including the Shinigi, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney First Nations. We acknowledge that this territory is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, District 5 and 6, within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. So we acknowledge the land that we call today our home, Calgary. Moving on, Federation of Calgary Communities is a nonprofit organization that is based on members. So we have 256 nonprofit organizations who are our members. Out of the 256, we have 156 who are community associations, 86 who are community-based organizations, 13 organizations which are resident associations, and 7 rural community associations. So we are a member-based organization and we serve and work with the communities throughout Calgary and beyond. So primarily, we focus on educating, empowering, connecting, and collaborating with the communities and community individuals as well as groups. We also work in the sectors of grants, so including Climate Ready YYC, Federation of Calgary Communities also has other grants like Activate YYC. That's the placemaking grant. We have Energizing Spaces that works with our members to upgrade to energy efficient appliances and lightings. We also have Action Grants, which is sponsored by Lloyd Sad, and it is a very interesting grant that is based on draw, and you have to submit your ideas. And just a quick information that action grants are open to apply as well right now. Besides grants, we also have a planning team who work with communities regarding planning issues and planning informations. And we also have an audit team who help audit our member organizations. Moving on. So Climate Ready YYC, the purpose of our meeting today. So Climate Ready YYC large grants offers large grants of $5,500 to $25,000, which will be awarded to registered organizations to empower climate actions at a grassroots community level. These grants aim to help communities and vulnerable groups adapt to the impacts of climate change or mitigate climate change by reducing or stopping the emission of greenhouse gases. So for this round, we have $100,000 to give out as grants to fund your amazing climate action projects. And we have allocated $75,000 for large grants. So it would be either 3 or more large grants for this round based on the applications that come in. So before we move on with the details of large grants, I would like to talk a little bit about climate change and what does climate change mean for Calgary. So as we all know, climate change is the change in weather pattern in a certain area over a long period of time. So normally when we say climate change, we look at a data of 30 years or more to verify if the climate and the weather patterns of a place is changing. Well, there are certain effects that can be observed instantly. However, when we talk about climate change and the technical data, then we see a period of 30 years or more. Um, so, moving on, how can we as community take actions to mitigate or adapt to the climate change? There are two ways. So it's either mitigation or adaptation. Mitigation basically is stopping climate change at the source, which is the emission of greenhouse gases. So mitigation simply is either reducing the amount of emissions or stopping it completely, or enhancing the carbon sinks so that the emissions that have been made are observed from the atmosphere and retained. So that's mitigation. And adaptation basically is, as we might have all realized, the climate is changing and there are certain impacts that are very bad due to the changing climate, like the extreme heat. So even if we stop all the emissions today, because of the emissions that we've already made, the climate will keep on changing for a while. So it's inevitable and we need to adapt or be prepared for the change that is coming. And that's where adaptation plays a very important role. So City of Calgary considers both mitigation and adaptation equally important. And if we look at the climate strategy, both of them are very important. And those are the two measures that the city and the community can contribute towards climate actions. Let's go into adaptation first. So with the changing climate, the hazards that have been very potent to Calgary are extreme heat, wildfire smoke, drought, river flooding, heavy rainfall, winter storms, severe storms like hail, and shifting season, and a lot of bugs and uh, that are caused due to the change in season. Um, so these are the hazards, and we need to be able to adapt to these extreme conditions due to changing climate. So what are the potential actions that we can take for adaptation? So this is a very beautiful photo that is developed by the City of Calgary, and it has several components of adaptation actions that can be adopted in order to cope with the changing climate. So as we can see, a few people doing roof gardens, which will help reduce the temperature of the building and also increase the green canopy in the space. We could have misting stations that would help with adapting to the extreme heat, using rain barrels or rainwater harvesting to conserve water. Similarly, going with perennial plants or pollinator gardens or rain gardens in your yard or community spaces that would help with soil conservation as well as water retention. Going for free resource libraries. So we have seen a lot of free libraries in Calgary, but if we try to have multi-use of these libraries where we can stock them with maybe like a sunscreen or something like a heat some measures to adapt to heat, or during winters if we can add on like toques or mitts that would help with the extreme winter conditions, then they would act as resource libraries and very accessible to the communities, right? So it could be shade structures, planting trees, using heat reflective paints to reduce the temperature within, or it could be anything like having shade structures or community gardens. Food resilience is also very important. Going for community gardens or any native gardens are always help us adapt to the changing climate. having these water stations. So these are some of the ideas. You don't have to limit yourself to these ideas. However, this is just a starter of the ideas of actions that can be taken. These are also some of the examples, and these are from the toolkit that we have developed and added in the website. So if you're thinking of if you have identified the issues in your community and cannot think of any adaptation actions that would be helpful, this toolkit is very useful to give you those ideas. Like for instance, having these community resilient spaces where if you have a community space and you can open those spaces in times of like extreme weathers like wildfire smoke for indoor activities or extreme heat for indoor activities, then that would be great. And it would be a respite space for community members to be in during extreme conditions, and having like fortifying these spaces with insulation so that they are more climate resilient is always better. And it could be other examples like having heat reflective paints or indigenous landscaping, using of native plants and indigenous knowledge about the plants that grow best in Calgary, and protecting our food sources. So these are some of the adaptation action examples. Moving on to the mitigation examples, as you can see and mentioned earlier. So mitigation is simply cutting the emission at source. So use of transits, public transit, instead of using individual vehicles, or going for like alternative mode of transportation like biking or using scooters or even walking, enhancing your neighborhood so that they are pedestrian friendly. Could be some mitigation actions that can be taken. And these are the examples from the toolkit. So having solars or clean energy installed in your community associations, or alternative modes of transportation, promoting these in your community, or sharing information on the use of electric vehicles, e-bikes or e-scooters, running repair cafes maybe if you're interested, or maybe adding a composting pit in your community garden that's already there, right? So these could be some of the mitigation action ideas. And I once again would like to say these are just ideas, and you can build on to other innovative projects or come up with any other innovations that you have in your mind to take community climate actions. After a short discussion on the potential ideas, I would like to move back to our grants. So eligibility criteria for Climate Ready YYC large grants. It is limited within the physical boundary of City of Calgary. So if you are living, or if your organization works within the City of Calgary, boundaries of City of Calgary, then you would be eligible to apply. Large grants are only open to registered organizations. Hence, if you're a community-based organization, community association, nonprofit, charity, social rec groups, or environmental organizations, please feel free to apply. Just a quick note that recipients of the previous rounds in the same year are not eligible to apply, and applicants can only apply to either large grant or small grant, and not both in the same round. So if you're thinking of applying for large grants, that would be just one grant that you'd apply, and would not qualify to apply for both large and small grants. Okay, just a quick run through the timeline. The call for applications started September 2nd, 2025, and the deadline for submission would be October 31st, 2025, 12 p.m. up to 12 midnight. Results would be declared early December. We would need a month to evaluate all the projects, amazing applications that come in, and we will be announcing the results early December. Project activity should be completed by November 15, 2026, with the submission of the report being November 31st, 2026. For a large grant, there is a requirement of an interim report somewhere in between, probably will be in June 2026. So moving on to the timeline. The timeline is here just so as to provide time so that you can design your projects and think about the timeline as well, and consider the timeline while designing your project as well. Moving on to the evaluation criteria. So this is the basis in which the grant applications that come in will be evaluated on these 7 criterias. So starting with the focus on climate action. So climate action could be projects could either be adaptation or mitigation or have components of both adaptation and mitigation projects. So we're very open to that. Projects must help communities or targeted groups adapt to specific climate issues, challenges, or hazards specific to City of Calgary, Calgary climate projections, or mitigate climate change by reducing the emissions. Community reach and engagement. Here we're trying to focus that the projects must engage targeted groups that are affected by climate change or more vulnerable to climate change impacts. So we're thinking about climate equity. So if your project targets the equity deserving groups or targets the more vulnerable groups from the community, please mention it now. However, mention it here. However, this project is also open to all communities. So it could be either everybody or the targeted audience. Collaborative efforts. How does your project involve, collaborate with, or engage community members and affected stakeholders? So if you're thinking of collaborating with other organizations who are working, small community groups who are working in the same theme, or if you're trying to coordinate with the volunteer groups, then please feel free to mention it here. And you could also mention how you're trying to engage the community members into this project. And accessibility. So projects should be designed to engage and be accessible to either all community members or a targeted group of community members. When we talk about accessibility, we are also talking about various measures that could help make the community accessible. For instance, if it is a physical structure like a shade structure or a misting station that is to be installed, then would it be open to all community members? Is it a public space, right? And is it accessible to wheelchairs, or is it accessible to people who have special needs? So these sort of things. And if you're thinking about trainings, and if you're training a certain group of people who speak a certain language, then would you be delivering these trainings in those languages? So those are the things that we're trying to understand in this. Measurable, tangible outputs. So proposals should have a measurable, positive impact on their community. The intervention should have some tangible activities. Like, for example, if you are running a certain training session and it also has like a DIY session where you will be developing DIY HEPA filters or activity-based educational workshops that hosted 25 people and installed one shade structure to their community park, right? So the numbers of the outcomes that you foresee for this project. So we would request you to have that in the application. Sustainability of the project. Please, we request you to think about the sustainability of the project and would encourage projects which are not one-off event. Like, the project should be designed sustainably so that it has prolonged impact in the community. For example, measures of maintenance of shade structures, right? Measures to clean and change the HEPA filters in the HEPA filters. Videos that could be shared to wider audience for awareness, so that even in the future you can reuse and there are opportunities to scale the project, right? And budget transparency. So projects should have clearly defined budgets that outline all foreseen costs for projects. Please consider the eligible and ineligible cost while making budget. So we have a document called grant criteria that is in our website, which I will be running you through later. That has all the eligible and the ineligible cost for this grant. And for the budget, we have prepared a template which can be used. Budget is compulsory for large grants. In terms of Climate Ready, so this is not a matching fund. However, we always encourage you to to match the funds if possible, and if there is an opportunity for multiple projects to align, then there is an opportunity for that in Climate Ready. So in the budget template, when we go through it later, you will see a section where you can mention if it is a match, the other grants, and how much these other grants will be liable in this project. So that's there. Moving on from the evaluation criteria. So we have the evaluation criteria and the grant guideline as well. And I will be providing all the slides and documents related to large grant to all the registrants after this presentation. Talking about the grant disbursement, large grants under Climate Ready YYC is a reimbursement grant. Organizations must submit a final report and complete all the financial documents, including receipts and proof of purchase, to the community grant implementer, that's me. Once this document is submitted and received, reimbursement checks will be issued at the end of the month. So that's how we roll. We will be having the reimbursements done at the end of each month. So all the documents should come within the third week of the month. Applications. So applications can be submitted online, or you could send a PDF copy to me. So for the online application, we're very sorry, but there is not an opportunity to save and come back later. So you would have to do the application in one go. If that is not very convenient, then there is an option to download the PDF file, and then you could send in as an attachment in an email to me. So you could attach all the other required documents like budget, letter of support, permits if required, and any other documents that you have, supporting documents for the application, in the email. In case you're doing an online application, there is an opportunity and a place to upload all of these documents. So please have them ready before you start the application. The online form is very visible in our website, and you would know what questions there are. So once you start, please get all the information so that once you start, you don't have to stop in between, because there is no option to save. There is an option to send a video as well. If you think video is more, if you're more comfortable with a video of your application ideas, then please feel free to record a video, and I will send a link to the drive where you can upload the video. Budget is, oh, sorry, it is compulsory. And for this grant, and there is a budget template that you can use for this grant. So moving on to the application, to the website, I can stop and take questions at this time if you have any, before we go through the grant applications, if that's helpful. And any questions so far? Okay, we have a question from Colleen.
Oh, hi, Pooja. When I was filling out the form online, I just noticed that, I was within the word count, but it was physically taking up more space than the physical box appeared. And so I'm just wondering, will you see all of that, that's not within the physical box? Okay, thank you.
Yes, we can scroll through the application box, yes.
Okay, because I was not able to scroll through it online, but you can.
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I think Colleen Smith, you have a question? Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
yes.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting this. All of the examples that you provided, or most of the examples you provided for the adaptation, are very specific and tangible, almost like technological based. We're thinking about applying from a more educational perspective to educate community members about maybe more specific things that could be done. Is that an appropriate angle to apply from, or are these tangible adaptation examples that you provide more eligible?
Both are eligible. We would encourage education sessions to have some tangible events as well. It could be a workshop or a DIY session, so that education is combined with something else, an action, and actual actions. So yeah, we would encourage that. However, only education sessions are welcome to apply as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions before we move on to the website? If not, I will just move on and share my screen again. Okay, and please let me know if you're able to see the screen with website. Okay, perfect. So this is the screen that you will land for Climate Ready YYC grants page, where we've written a little bit about our grants and the intakes, types of grant that we have. We have small grants, 500 to 5,000, and we are talking today primarily focused on large grants, which are from 5,500 to 25,000. If you click the Learn More, it will take you to the large grants website where we have the form as well. This talks about the eligibility criteria. And here we have the project criteria document that I was talking about earlier, and you can download it. And we have eligible and ineligible expenses as well mentioned here for the project. That would be helpful for the budget sheet. Budget sheet is compulsory for large grants. So how to apply, develop an idea, fill out the application form, and share this grant opportunity to others if you have anybody interested. Project inspiration. So this is the inspiration toolkit, which has details, and this is a slideshow. So you can go to various examples and you can download the toolkit here. We also have some examples of the past projects that have happened under Climate Ready YYC. If you'd like to run through the grants and the activities that have been done in the past with this grant. We also have the frequently asked questions section where we have put up potential questions and answers to them. However, there is an opportunity for you to also book a meeting with me if you have any questions or concerns. So this grant is also unique because I'm here to help you in every step of the grant application. If you struggle anywhere with a budget application, please feel free to either email me or book a meeting with me, and I can co-write the application or help you in any possible way. So if you're applying for the grants even for the first time, please feel free to reach out to me, and I am here to help you. And just a disclaimer that I will not be in the evaluation committee. So I'm not a member of the evaluation committee since I'm writing the grants with everybody. So just a disclaimer. And moving on to the large grants. So if you go to this page and go apply now or click here and go learn more and apply, this will take you to the large grants website. A little bit about the large grant project and important dates for this. Who can apply? Registered organizations are eligible to apply. We have the project criteria and eligible expenses here as well. And in the how to apply section, we have the general guidelines. And we also have the project inspiration toolkit, large grant guidelines, and budget template here if you'd like to download them. Moving on to the large grant application forms, I will run through the questions and what sort of like potential answers could these questions have? What is the name of the organization? Here is the button to download the PDF form. So if you want to do it PDF, and that gives a lot of flexibility to maybe write the grant application offline as well, or discuss in your group. So if that's easier, then you can simply download the PDF form here. For the online form, you can simply fill out here. What is the name of your organization, mailing address, contact details, phone number, email, and preferred way of contact. So tell us about your organization. What inspires you to apply this for this grant? So we want to know more about your organization, what sort of activities or projects and goals that your organization has, and what inspires you to apply for this grant. So why Climate Ready YYC? We'd like to hear some stories or past events, activities that you've run as an organization that has inspired you to apply for this grant as well. Or if you're thinking of scaling up a project that is already there, or if this grant really strengthens the goals of your organization, we'd like to hear here. What is the name of your project? So if you have some funky names, interesting names, this is always a very interesting section to learn the names of the organization, fun names, then please, this is an optional thing, but if you have a name, here is the place to put it. What climate issues does your project address? Please check all that apply. So here are all the 8 hazards that we mentioned earlier for City of Calgary. And if there are any specific, like extreme heat, or if your project is for multiple hazards like extreme heat, wildfire smoke, flooding, then please check all that apply. And if it does not apply to any, then there is an opportunity to select NA or go other and write if there are anything else that your project is specifically trying to address. How does your project initiatives mitigate climate change? So there are options either to select like emission reduction or carbon sink enhancement or clean or renewable source of energy. If any of these fit, please feel free to tick. But if you're only thinking about adaptation projects, it's okay if you do NA, or if all of these options do not specify the thing that you are trying to do, then there is an option to tick other and then write whatever your project initiative is targeting. What category or categories best describe your project? Please check all that apply. If you have installation of physical structure and nature-based projects, then you would select both. Nature-based projects as more focused on like maybe rain gardens, community gardens, maybe planting trees. And physical structures are more kind of like maybe misting stations or shade structures or solar panels that you're trying to install. And education or awareness workshops, events or programs, and other. If it is other, there's an opportunity to write as well. So please take all the categories that would best describe your project. In the question, tell us about your project. What climate ready project are you planning? How will your project support your community or prevent climate change and or build resilience to climate change? So here we're trying to understand your project, about your project, and what sort of activities or what you are trying to do. So this should answer the what in your project, and how will your project support the community to prevent climate change would be this section. So please feel free to upload any drawings, photos, and inspirations related to your project. So for instance, if you're thinking about having a community park or a community climate fair, so if you have any photos of the past projects or from the internet that has inspired your project, you could upload them here. The next question is about the target audience. So tell us about your target audience. What climate vulnerable individuals or groups do you hope will benefit from this project? How will this project engage or include the community? Tell us if the project will be planned and led by the community. Will the community members engage as volunteers to build the project? So here we are trying to understand about the target audience that you're trying to include in your project, and in ways how you will engage them in the project process. So are they engaged from the planning phase? So we are trying to understand that. So the next question would be, tell us about the accessibility of your project. How accessible is the project that you have planned to the community or the vulnerable individuals or groups? If it is a physical structure, would it be an open and accessible to the community or the vulnerable groups? Is it in a public space? If it is an event or workshop, would it be open to all? Is it free to participate, right? The levels of accessibility in your project. So we're trying to understand that in this question. Tell us about the people that the project will collaborate with. Are you planning the project in partnership with other organizations or groups in your community? This could be other organizations working with the same goal and objectives, or a local nonprofit. So we're trying to understand if there are any other organizations or groups that you will be working with, just to have that synergetic effect in the project. What is the estimated start date and the date of completion of your project? So we are trying to understand the timeline for the project that you're thinking about. And where will the project take place? So physical address of the place, if it is a physical structure, or if you're thinking about any like tangible things, then we would request for an address if you have them. Please attach permit documents or approvals or support letters required for the implementation of the project. So you can just add on the files. Please be mindful that the maximum size of the file is 134 MB. So when you're attaching files, if the files are bigger than this, they will not attach. What is the total grant amount being requested? So we're trying to understand your budget, and please upload your proposed budget. So budget is an important and compulsory element of this grant, and there is a template available. If you have any confusion with the template, please feel free to approach me. And here is a place to upload your completed budget sheet. When your project is finished, how will you know it was a success? So we're trying to understand the outcome of your project. What short-term and long-term impacts do you anticipate? How will you ensure? So the last question would be, how will you ensure that your project has a prolonged impact on your community? So we are asking about the sustainability aspect of your project, and how do you foresee your project being scaled up or used in the future by the community or community groups? So that brings us to the end of our application form. You would simply click "I'm not a robot" and submit. So online applications have to be filled up in one go. However, the best thing is that all the questions are visible, so you can always prepare and then start when you have all the documents ready. If you face any problems with the form, please feel free to come to us and we will try to fix it. As mentioned earlier, here are the resources that you would require, and the budget template is here as well. Just a quick run through of all the resources that we have. I will try to switch my screen. And I will quickly share the budget sheet as well. Here's the budget sheet, and it should be visible to you now. So in the budget sheet, we have description of actions, unit. So unit would simply be a definition of define the quantity and the cost, and quantity would be the number. Unit cost would be cost per quantity set in, and the total cost would be simply multiplication of the quantity and unit cost. Here is also an opportunity where you can provide the total cost to be covered by Climate Ready grant. As I mentioned earlier, Climate Ready grant is not a matching grant. However, we are open to opportunities to match. So if you're thinking of applying as a match to some other projects or grants that you have applied for or you have been approved for, then please feel free to do that. Just an example of the budget would be, for instance, if it is a workshop, then food unit would be person days and quantity would be number of people. For instance, 10 people for 2 days would be 20, right? And then unit cost for each person day, and then that would give you the total cost. Here you would provide, for instance, if it is 40% covered by Climate Ready, then you would simply use the formula here in this tab. There is also an opportunity to add the sources of revenue. So ClimateReadyYYC would be 25,000 probably. And if there is another grant, like maybe Calgary Foundation or any other grants that you've received or have applied for and are proposing a match for this project, then you could add on other grants here. And then simply click maybe proposal submitted or grant approved, whatever is the status of the grant. So this is the budget sheet. I will stop sharing my screen now and open for any questions and answers that you would have. That brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you. Any questions in the chat so far?
Quick question, Pooja, sorry.
Sure.
Just out of curiosity, do you know when your next intake will be, and if that when that is paid out, or when the project's expected to be completed after the next intake? For example, you said that, this intake obviously is end of October, needs to be done by November of next year. So when's the next intake and completion date?
So the next intake would be next year. We will open in January and close in February. However, the Climate Ready YYC grant, we have approval only until next year. So even if the grants open in January, the date of completion would be closer to November next year.
Oh, I see. Okay, interesting. Thank you so much, Pooja.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, if there are no more questions, then we can take a leave. Thank you very much. If you have any questions that don't come to your mind now and have questions for later, please feel free to book a call with me or send an email to me. So the email IDs are all mentioned in the website, and I'll be there for you.